Hey everybody, welcome to So Many Sequels. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
Today on the show, we're talking about the Goonies. This 80s cult classic is going to be our next stop here in Action August. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're watching us here on YouTube or in your favorite podcasting app, wherever that may be. If it's Apple, you should leave a review too. That stuff really helps us out. Yeah, subscribe. Okay, let's do the show now. The Goonies. Set the stage here for anyone who isn't familiar with it. A young teenager named Mikey Walsh finds an old treasure map in his father's attic. Hoping to save their homes from demolition, Mikey and his friends, Data, Chunk, and Mouth, run off on a big quest to find the secret stash of pirate One-Eyed Willie. We have this in a different order in our show notes, but I feel like we should start with Garrett explaining, because it's your pick. Why did you pick it for our Action August month?
Yeah, you know, the Goonies has entered my foray into early this year because I got a dog, and he has a brown patch over his eye, and so we were trying to find a name, and we wanted something movie-y, but we didn't want like patch or we wanted something different. And so I was like, it looks like an eye patch, so we went to pirate route, and then boom, One-Eyed Willie. That's where we landed, and it was like, oh my God, it's the Goonies. Subtle reference, which is what we like. Human name, even better. So it worked out, and it's another movie where I haven't really seen it since I was a kid. And most of the time I would see it on like TBS or something like that, TBS or TNT. It was just kind of on television. And so I haven't seen it from start to finish as an adult in a long time. And then whenever we decided to do action, this is more action adventure side, I would say, maybe a little more adventure action. But with action comes adventure. And this takes you on an adventure in an action-packed kind of way, especially for kids. And so there's a lot going on. And I think it's a really fun way to kind of really start our journey into some action movies, too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to get into it. David, how did this movie perform when it opened in the box office back in 1985?
Well, it performed pretty well. Not necessarily the bit. Sorry, my voice is
still
gone.
we didn't preface the audience. David's still trying to get over his frog voice that has just left him
cold.
for no reason. So
lost my voice.
He's going to struggle through this, and we will cut him off when we need to.
Usually the longer I go, the better it gets over time. So anyway, the movie did well. It wasn't necessarily the biggest movie of 1985, but it was in the top 10. It opened the weekend of June 7th, 1985, and to $9.1 million, according to Box Office Mojo. Just behind Rambo First Blood Part 2, which brought in $10.2 million in its third weekend. In the number 3 spot that weekend was Fletch, followed by A View to Kill, and then a number 5 movie called Perfect, which brought in $4.2 million. Domestically, everybody seems to agree that the Goonies finished with about $61 to $63 million in the United States. I'm going with a few different sources here because there's kind of some all over the place reporting in terms of the Goonies box office haul. According to Box Office Mojo, the movie made $61 million during its United States run. But according to the numbers, it's about $63 million, and Wikipedia also reports that. Again, worldwide numbers, very weird. Box Office Mojo reports its international haul as $2,000.
Well, that's clearly not true.
And I can't get the numbers to load right now, but here's the difference. It gets pretty wild. I think the numbers reports it as about $800,000. And meanwhile, Wikipedia reports it's overseas as also in like $60 million, giving it a worldwide total of 125.
That makes more sense.
So I have no idea how much this movie made worldwide. There's 3 different choices here. My wonder is that whoever did the math on Wikipedia saw that it made 63 in the United States or like it made 61 in the United States and 63 worldwide and went, oh, so it made 60 overseas or something, and they like accidentally added the number to itself. Anyway, the movie finished, like I said, as the number 9 movie of 1985. We've actually been to 1985 quite a few times already. The last time we were in 1985 was for a Garrett favorite, Clue. And the time before that was for our 12th episode of so many sequels, Back to the Future. So it's a great year for movies. We haven't been there that often, though. The top movies of 1985 were Back to the Future, Rambo, First Blood Part 2, Rocky IV, The Color Purple, and Out of Africa. The Goonies finished just behind Witness and just ahead of Spies Like Us. That is your box office run for The Goonies.
Wow, yeah. Well, this movie, it makes sense why it's a hit. It stars a lot of future movie stars in it. You've got Sean Astin here, Corey Feldman, Ke Kwan, Josh Brolin. You got a lot of people who are going to be in the movies for a while, so it's really cool to see them as kids. Some of them continue on as child actors before they even grow up into becoming adult actors, but there's a lot of fun cast members here. Garrett, since this was your pick, let's go to you for your kind of first thoughts on it, watching it as an adult.
Oh man, it is still just wide-eyed wonder is the best way that I feel like I can describe this movie. As I was going through and taking my notes and jotting it down, that is really the sense that I get and still feel. And maybe there's some nostalgia there, but I also think, and we can talk about this out the show, but the production value that this movie goes into and the level of reality this sets, especially for a kid-focused movie. I mean, teenagers are in that kind of range, but the range is kids. An adventure for kids, and they really, I don't feel like you get that kind of quality for those kinds of movies anymore. And so seeing how much production value was put into this, it really just enhanced the enjoyment of this movie. It's like, for me, it felt like Peter Pan meets Indiana Jones, and it was such a nice melding of the two that just still really holds up well. There's some parts that do not hold up well. It's very loud in moments. Some characters are not written well. It was questionable as to why they should be there in the first place. But overall, it still holds true to that. Just, again, I know I've said it a lot, but that wide-eyed wonder that I had as a kid, I still felt that watching it this time.
Yeah, it's a super fun movie. I had fun with it. There's a lot of things I forgot about it. I love that these kids are just these little anti-capitalist little kings living their life in the Pacific Northwest. They're just trying to enjoy their lives and save their homes from these rich assholes who want to come in and bulldoze them and build a golf course. Why do rich people in movies always want to build a golf course? Is my thing. I don't get it.
Country club cocks, that's what they are.
It's always the villain's move. Is a golf course would look really good right over that
Man,
poor child
join the first tee.
And so they go out on this adventure because they discover a map, and they want to find money to save their home, not even to buy themselves a new home somewhere else. They want to redistribute the wealth. They are socialists. Good job, kids.
I will agree. It was a bit noisier than I remember. I think as a kid, this movie really captures the frenetic energy that kids have with each other, because it's just like they're just always talking over each other, or always like one of them could not finish the sentence without another one going, yeah, I don't know about that, or whatever. And so it really did take me back to that place, though, of like, in this world, kids can do anything. They have like limitless imagination, and they have no supervision, so they just do whatever they want. They just go, and like an adventure is just waiting to be had. So the nostalgia really, like, for that time of when it felt like that was possible for me as a kid came back. As an adult, it was a little more annoying at times, but like you, Garrett, and Josh, you may have said this as well. There was a lot here that like I mostly saw this on TV as a kid, and so I watched it in basically what was like 20-minute intervals back then, cut up with commercials for who knows what all, Pine Sol. It was a different time in terms of being able to watch stuff at home, and so like there were whole instances of this movie that I don't think I've ever seen before, and we can get into that here in a second. But yeah, this was a great little adventure, mystery, fantasy action movie.
Yeah, seriously. To dive a little deeper into it, I want to talk about them as a group because these are like your classic '80s friends who, for some reason, are best friends, but really just like hate each other. They all are so mean to each other, and it bugged me a little bit. But it's also really funny because it just felt so '80s. They're constantly bullying each other, some more than others. You know, poor Chunk is who I got to talk about as the character that probably ages the worst. He's just all they're doing is shoving food in this kid's face the whole time.
All time.
He's really funny at times. Like I noted when he walks in and goes, "Oh God, am I depressed?" and just sprays whipped cream in his mouth. Same Chunk. And that is a great response to that.
It is.
But then also, like, at the end, when they come out and the families are all greeting them, his mom, like, already has a Domino's pizza for him. Like, ready
With
to ship
sponsorship.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
yeah.
But also just, like...
It's like
That was
he's
her
the
thought.
fat kid, so and his family's the family of fat people, so they just always like, oh, we got to go pick up our son. Let's bring pizza.
Yeah, they're always yelling at each other, shut up, shut up. What was the one... I don't remember who said it to who, but I got pictures of your mom naked as an insult.
Oh, yeah. That was mouth
Yeah.
to Chunk.
To
Yes.
Chunk to get him mad
Mouth
enough
to
to
Chunk.
break down the door.
That cracked
Chunk
me
was
up.
one that I had trouble with because, you know, he was clearly there to be the fat kid who people made fun of for being fat, and that's never cool. But I also got to say, he exhausted me.
Oh, well, yeah.
In this movie because he just shouted. When he spoke, it was at like a volume of 7, and that was the lowest he ever got for no reason. He just yelled, and it was tiring. And there were moments where he was funny. The whipped cream was one. His fake puke scene at his fake puke prank at the movie theater whenever he's recounting that, absolutely hilarious. And I think I heard that was like improv, and you can see the Fratelli bad guy in the back kind of cracking. I think he's laughing as it goes on because that was quite funny. But yeah, he specifically stood out as one that was just very exhausting. And I thought that was interesting because when I was a kid, I thought it was Data. I thought Data was really loud, and Data was this time cool. I liked Data a lot. He was just gadget inventor, and
I
that
know
was really
he's
cool.
he's a little James Bond freak. He loves
He was a
all the
baddie out
little
the
gadgets.
gate. I said, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
just building
great.
all kinds of crazy trinkets and
The
toys
shoes that popped open.
and make grease.
Yeah, he did all kinds of cool stuff. That's the fun part about it is like throughout once we get to actually being in the maze, there the booby traps that One-Eyed Willie set, you get to see how each kid kind of brings their own skill or talent or whatever it is to the booby trap situation. It's fun.
Definitely. And then, little Sean Astin.
Little
in
Mikey.
Maybe his second most melodramatic role. I don't know.
He
No,
gives a lot of
he's-
great speeches for a little kid.
He is. He's head Goonie.
This is
It's
our
our
time.
time. Down here, it's our time.
Yeah.
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 I wrote down a couple of speeches. The first one that you mentioned is the wishing well scene, but I actually want to talk about the scene that sets the stage and that really sucked me in, and that's when he's recounting his story of One-Eyed Willie. And the way that he delivers his recounting of One-Eyed Willie and that story, that's the first time that I wrote down the wide-eyed wonder, and that's literally his eyes are huge, and it's just a shot of him. There's no flashbacks. There's nothing to confirm his story in any way, shape, or form. It's just his belief in this story, and it draws everybody in, and me too, as an audience member. I said that moment right there has me hooked, and I am ready to go for whatever they are about to get into. I am officially a Goonie. Let me sign the card, whatever I gotta do. Do I need to get my house foreclosed on? Like, is that the policy? I don't know exactly, but I will do it because I want to experience. And that leads to that speech in the wishing well too, which is one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, from top to bottom. But that speech where he's basically saying, if we give up now, the reality is our houses are foreclosed and we move and never see each other again. But if we keep going, that doesn't have to be the reality. We're still the Goonies down here, and we can find this, even if it leads to nothing. We still have this time, but if we go up now, we're putting an end to it. And I think that's just those are just two really well-crafted speeches.
100%. He's the moral center of the Goonies. Everybody else can go off in their extremes, whether that's Corey Feldman, abusing and harassing a non-native speaker, or it's Chonk, and his silliness. I also want to mention, I think Josh Brolin as the big brother, this was actually a really nice character, because he could have just been like a total jerk and just be like, you guys are lame. And sometimes he was like, you guys are lame, but also he would be like, nah, I'm going to watch after you guys. And he'd like hug his brother, because he also doesn't want to move. He doesn't want his house to be torn down. So like he could have just been like a total classic 80s brother bully jerk, but he was actually a pretty good big brother, I thought. So
as far as 80s movies go,
good job, Richard Donner and writer.
Yeah, I believe the writer was Chris Columbus, actually.
Right.
Yes, it was. There's a lot of good behind the scenes. Steven Spielberg is involved in this. Richard Donner directed. Chris Columbus wrote it. So, like, it's got that element. I mean, these people are involved with a lot of classic movies that involve this kid focus, wondery kind of a thing, and they execute it really well.
Yeah.
Sure. And then, what about? Let's talk about Andy, aka Andrea. I thought that she was a really interesting addition to the whole thing, because she provides a little bit of someone who's scared and not really quite as invested in the same way. She's there to hang out with Josh Brolin's character Brandon, but at the same time, she, like you said, Josh, gets to bring her own background and skill set. She is a Goonie by the end of it all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Her and her friend.
The family grows, I guess. The Goonie family. Which, also, this was the first time. Well, I mean, the first time I understood it really in the movie, why they're called the Goonies. I never really got it as a kid. I was like, yeah, it's just a name for them. But no, it's a whole Pacific Northwest thing.
Yeah, they live on the Goondogs?
Yeah, something like that.
Or something like that. Voice cracked hard on that one.
Yeah. No, I also thought that her character added a fun element. You get some moments with you have to bring that in, because you get these funny moments with some of the actual jerks who are associated with the country club, and it adds a little more. I mean, that other person that I don't remember the guy's name, but the person that Andy and her friend Steph were hanging out with at the beginning, they almost tried to murder Brand. I mean, you grab somebody on a children's bike and rev the engine up to 45 miles an hour on an open road and let them fly. I mean, he's dead, realistically. Let's not kid. But that scene again, whenever he was like wishing to get with Andy, and then they throw the coin back up there, I find that genuinely hilarious every single time. And then they bring up her suit or her jacket instead of her, and I think that she doesn't necessarily. I think again in the 80s they had trouble writing female characters, but she provides some really good moments, and her piano skills at the end with that final booby trap, they do find a way to make her have some meaning, which was nice to see, especially for that time frame.
Yeah, for sure. David, you pointed out the use of the Rube Goldberg machine and how
I did.
This is just like a thing in 80s movies, and you're definitely right. And I wanted to put this call out too, because we wanted to hear from folks who are a little older than us, who actually had a childhood in the 80s. Were Rube Goldberg machines as prevalent as they are in your movies? Because there's a ton of them everywhere.
I mean, the Goonies. There's Ferris Bueller.
Pee-wee.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
BTTF.
Doc has a whole bunch in Back to the Future. Even The Great Mouse Detective has like a big crazy one. So like, what was the obsession here?
You're right. Where did that come from? And did people build them? I remember wanting to as a kid in the 90s.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
probably because we saw all of these movies.
And it was like, oh, that's what people do. You pull a string, and then a bowling ball rolls down, and then it disturbs a chicken, who then like runs, and then that opens your gate door.
It's the only real reason that I wanted to play the Mousetrap game. Remember that game? It had like Heidelberg-esque devices in it.
Absolutely. That was a great
It's
game.
like having one without the difficulty of building it.
Yes.
Yeah, let us know. Get on our Facebook or our... No, that was an old thing to say. Get on our social media, whichever one's your chosen one. And that might be Facebook. But
It might be.
it could be another one. We're on several of them. Go check them out at SoManySequels.com. Speaking of references like that, this movie has a lot of fun product placement that I wanted to call out. A lot of Pepsi in this movie. Domino's, as we already said. The Babe Ruth is a big one. Now, of course, most of them revolve around Chunk eating food.
Yeah.
But my favorite
probably-
one... What? Go ahead.
I was going to say that's probably why they wrote him that way, is just to get all that sponsorship.
Probably. I like this one because it felt a little self-congratulatory, and it was... this movie's directed by Richard Donner, who directed Superman the movie in 1978, I think, or 5. What was it? 8, I think. And during one of the big fight scenes in the climax, Sloth rips off his shirt and reveals a Superman shirt, and then John Williams' Superman score plays, and I was like,
Synergy.
Synergy,
I like that
why?
Sloth got that hero moment, because
I mean,
Sloth is a character.
no, don't mistake me
Yeah.
for discounting Sloth at all. It just was like, really, he just was like, hey, remember I made Superman.
That's fair. That's fair. I respect that. Yeah.
That's all. I don't mind. Yeah, obviously, Sloth deserved his moment from the freaking Fratellis or whoever they were.
Yeah, this is the first time that I feel like, David, you
Crime
talked about
Family.
some moments that you feel like you may or may not have seen. For me, I don't feel like I've ever seen the very opening scene. I feel like I remember things starting off with Andy doing the victory pyramid and the car chase in the background, and you kind of learn over time. I could be wrong, but I don't remember the movie opening with a fake suicide in a prison.
I thought that
For
was
me,
a
I
little
feel
dark,
like
too.
that was like, oh my God, that is heavy. And so maybe that's why, but for me, that's really the scene that I feel like I hadn't seen. What were some of the ones for you?
Well, yeah, it's like you always catch those moments you always catch movies like this, like in progress. So like I don't think I ever saw that either. I also have no memory of like the body in the freezer, that they stumble on. But that
The only real problem
I don't think
with
that was like cut out or anything. I probably just missed it.
you can't smell ice cream. I mean, you could if you were like,
Chunk can,
like
my
if you walk
God.
in an ice cream store, you smell it. But you can't smell ice cream through a freezer, and you're telling me you smell it over a body, Chunk.
Yeah.
I did have to laugh at that. And he was like, they have all kinds. It was named the most specific kinds of ice cream on earth.
But the body was right
Yeah, the
there.
body-
He
I know,
like
it's
just
very
completely
comical.
ignored it. It was right there next to him.
And
Anyway.
it lands on him. Lovely.
Yeah, that was hilarious. This kid being trapped under a corpse. It was such great physical humor.
Yeah, Spielbergian corpse in the freezer.
No, but yeah, it is kind of crazy how. I don't know. This movie probably made it onto VHS at some point, but it just never really found its way into my house. So yeah, there's a lot about this movie that seemed new this time around.
I mean, I came out the same as you, Garrett. I didn't really recall the opening fake death scene. But I also got to say, I didn't remember that it actually kind of takes a while in the movie before the real adventure part starts, where they're like in there with all the booby traps and all that. I remember it being much more of the movie. So that was kind of just interesting to look back on because, of course, as a kid, I'm going to remember those parts more. But there's a whole setup going on.
Yeah, how'd you guys feel about One-Eyed Willie and his whole booby trap treasure trove that he had for them and how they were able to navigate through all of those?
I liked it. It's how every kid thinks a treasure works. Of course there were booby traps, and of course no one's ever found it, and of course it's right under my homely little Oregon town.
Right.
It's perfect.
Because as everybody knows, there were tons of Atlantic-style pirates in the Pacific Northwest.
Right. And a map that was just like a framed treasure map.
Mm-hmm. Nobody ever bothered to really look at.
It's perfect kid stuff.
I thought that was really cool. I mean, that's the exact kind of adventure you want to go as a kid, is find hidden pirate treasure. And they did a lot to build the mythology, I guess, around Willie without actually doing anything. like today, I think there would be a lot of like a flashback or sort of like an imaginative recreation of what happened, or the whole movie would open with Willie, and you get like a pre, like before the prison break, there'd be like a prologue with One-Eyed Willie shooting his men or something like that, And I mean, in that sense, it's very much very reminiscent of Treasure Island, because that's how the Treasure Island happens. Is the Flint takes his men, they bury the treasure, and then he kills all of them, so no one else will ever find it. And so like it's very taken from actual from previous pirate and adventure storytelling, and blends it all together in the way that makes sense when you know that it's like Spielberg and someone like Richard Donner, Christopher Columbus. Like that's their wheelhouse totally.
What I couldn't get over, they would never call it treasure, and they kept calling it rich stuff, and that was driving me crazy. What is that?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that? We gotta find One-Eyed Willie's rich stuff. It's treasure,
gems, gold.
Your coins,
Maybe
your
there was
golden
a copyright on
rich
treasure
stuff.
for a little while.
Yeah, that made me laugh. I was like, is that a term up there? I don't know. Rich stuff. Made me laugh.
What do we think of the bad guys with the Fratellis? What do we think of them? Because I thought they were both interestingly menacing and stupid at the same time.
They're adequate, They're not what I feel like I'm there to watch.
They are.
So like they do what they need to do in their role, but I don't give them a lot of thought, to be honest with you, because I'm way more interested in the treasure hunting.
They are definitely
hunting.
they're like buffoonishly menacing because they're tall and they're they got scary looking faces, and they threaten to do really nasty stuff like put Chong's hand in a blender, cut out their tongues, which is what Mama Fratelli did to me. But it's also just kind of funny because Joe Pantoliano is one of them, and like I remember seeing him all the time in like the early 2000s. He was in The Matrix, and he was in Daredevil. He was in what was the other one? He was in Bad Boys. So I just remember seeing him in a lot of stuff, and I'm being like, oh my gosh, he's in this too. Like wow, there's just like a billion people in this daggone movie. He's in Ready to Rumble. Anyway, I thought they were really good villains for kids. Like, they were a little buffoonish, but also, like, if they got their hands on those kids, that would be, they could really hurt them.
Yeah.
But, they got this sibling kind of rivalry thing. You always like him better, Ma. Like, it was like a real Everybody Loves Raymond style situation.
Yeah. The coolest thing I thought they did was they didn't kill anybody on their way out of that jail escape. They just like gunshot a fire around the jail, and I thought that was pretty smart. Good for them.
Very
But when the feds
considerate.
came by, bang, 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 bang.
Yeah, well, yeah, different story.
I thought that was that was kind of a mislead for me, because earlier in the movie, these two guys in white trench coats come up to the Walsh family house and are like, "Give this to your dad." And then later we see two guys in white trench coats approach that restaurant where the Fratellis are hiding, and they get killed. And I just assumed they were the same guys, but they're totally not the same guys.
Yeah.
The other guys show up later, and they're like, "Oh yeah, sign your house away now." So that was a little confusing for me, because I was like, "Oh, they're kind of out of it a little bit, at least for a little while." The guy who wanted their house just got killed.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
What do you guys think about one of the big things this movie created in pop culture is Chunk's Truffle Shuffle. Thoughts? Do you understand it? Because now when I saw it, I was like, that's it? Why did that become a thing?
Man, I even saw that, and my first reaction was, he not even that big.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He's just
that big.
like a chubby kid.
Yeah, that's it.
Honestly.
Ain't no reason for him to be having to do this. That's rude.
No, it's demeaning. That's the word.
Yes.
It is demeaning, and they're all demeaning of each other. Especially Mouth of Chunk.
Well, but
it just kind of it was one of those times where they really perpetuated this sort of like at the subconscious level. Overweight people have to provide humor in order to be like valuable to the rest of the group, and so like if they can get value out of humiliating Chunk, that's his contribution, because otherwise
and part
he's
of that humor is being covered in food as much as possible.
Exactly.
He's got chocolate on his face.
Because
he's spilling
otherwise-
strawberry milkshake all over himself.
because otherwise Chonk is super clumsy. He's a pathological liar. He's not very bright. Like otherwise Chonk, like they don't really. At least I think as far as Mouth is concerned, he wouldn't hang out with Chonk if he didn't find him funny. Sean Astin's character. What is that main Goonies name? I forgot.
Mikey.
Mikey. He seems to genuinely I like Chonk. He's my neighbor. He's a good kid. Stop making fun of him, Mouth. But, I don't know. I think that's just kind of the general 80s vibe. And then, subsequently people made their overweight friends do that for years.
I wanted to talk about some of the weird things. This movie there's like weird sexual tension throughout this whole movie, and it's not done well. And there's specifically with Brand and Andy, there's a lot of weird stuff that's going on. There's a makeout scene with Mikey and Andy where she thinks it's Brand and it's not. The whole one-eyed Willie thing, if you're gross-minded, could be a different kind of situation if you,
right.
But at the end is where two things really stood out to me, and I want to see if they stood out to you too. I'm going to read you a couple of quotes here. This is at the end when they've been found, and Mouth says to Steph, after they've had their whole back and forth, "Your looks are kind of pretty when your face doesn't screw it up." And then he went in and gave her this weird, full-on hug. Like, it was just really strange. And then Andy says to Mikey at the end, "You're a great person, and you keep kissing girls the way you do. The parts of you that don't work so good, they're going to catch up to the ones that do." Did either one of you hear those quotes and have any issue with that? Because I was flabbergasted, because that sounds weird and gross in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, it's very preteen. It's very like, there's an immaturity with them. I assume by the parts that don't work, I think she mostly means like kid wears braces and he's got asthma and stuff like that, and that eventually he'll get over those things. But yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know. I think apparently if you ask anybody who is like an adult in the 1980s, they tell you like, "Oh yeah, we just said like wildly out of pocket stuff to each other all the time."
I do believe that.
Yeah, they do act like they just said heinous things at all times and that was normal. I don't believe them, but they say they did it.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah, no, like we kind of said at the beginning, like these kids, all they do is say the most awful things most of the movie to each other or to anyone just within firing range. But then they ultimately come together as the Goonies to save. They're like the kind of people who are like, nobody talks shit about us but us.
Yeah.
So we're gonna save the Goonie Town.
Yeah.
I think there's an element of it's viewed as sort of a more innocent version of like sexualizing these kids a little bit with the kissing and the idea that like, hey, you know what, you're a pretty good kisser for a 9-year-old or whatever he is. Like, it towed this kind of line that was like okay back then, that like there's been a real backlash against that, and I feel like if this exact same movie was transported to today, there'd be a lot of people who love this movie who would hate it. But I don't know, but that's my assumption. The conversation about kids and sexualization is so minefield laced, it seems like sometimes, that I'm not really sure what's okay and what's not.
For the record, I am perfectly okay with innuendo. I think this was just poorly written and a little too on its face is what I was saying. Is like, if you want to do some innuendo, that's fine, but you just basically call it out here.
Yeah, it is.
That
it
sounds
is
like
subtle.
a puberty joke in a bad way.
Yeah, at times it's not written quite well.
All right, let's go ahead here and transition to our final thoughts and ratings for the show. I'll start with mine. I think it's great. It's a really fun movie still, even as an adult. I think the worst thing about it is how the kids treat each other. But it was the 80s, and like we just said, they say they did that. But also, like, kids are assholes no matter what year it is. That's just a given. Otherwise, it is a fun story with adventure, childhood wonder, community, all that fun stuff. Is 4 out of 5 stars for me.
I agree. I'm going to also give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's very fun. A little more annoying as an adult than I was as a kid. I think I told Garrett, I said, at times it was like Uncut Gems for kids. Just too many people yapping at the same time. Please, one at a time with your story. But yes, the sense of adventure, the sense of wonder is all there. 4 out of 5 stars.
4s across the board. Yeah, this is another 4-star movie for me. I don't have anything else to say. It's so much fun. There's wonder. There's adventure. There's some action. Movie stars that we love today, loving back then and seeing why they're movie stars today. And so it's just well produced, well executed, and a lot of fun all the way from start to finish. So yeah, another 4 stars.
Yay! How funny. It's funny how a lot of times we'll be like, wow, sometimes we don't differ enough on opinions, but our ratings are still never the same. It feels like it's fun when our ratings are all the same. That feels almost like it's harder than getting us all to agree we like a movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We all might like it, but we won't all say we like it the same. That's good. 4 out of 5 stars for all of us. Don't even have to average that. All right, let's see what Letterboxd thinks of the movie here. I've got some of the most popular reviews pulled up. Am I still going first this time? Am I still losing the worst?
Yeah.
Okay, well then I'll just read these and prepare my guess while you guys do yours. First, we got 5 stars here. Chunk and Sloth are proof that a love of food is the strongest foundation for any friendship. 3 stars. Why was Corey Feldman cast as annoying kid number 1 in every 80s movie, and why did no one ever stop him? 4.5 stars. The Thanos origin story we deserved. Here, David, you'll like this one. Oh, Garrett, too. You mentioned this, too. 2.5 stars. If I wanted to hear kids screaming for 2 hours, I would have just booked a flight. Mm-hmm. 3.5 stars. Mikey is fucking delusional, and I love and cherish Data so much. And then, 4 stars. Samwise Gamgee and 3 other hobbits team up with Thanos to find an ancient pirate treasure, but they are being chased by Bond villain Franz Sanchez and Cypher, who seem to be back in the Matrix, just as amazing as it sounds.
Wait, too many dots are connecting, because watching this movie as an adult, when they pulled out that marble bag and all those stones, my instant reaction was, it's the Infinity Stones! Because if you go back and watch, it is just a bunch of stones that are all, and then I didn't even piece Josh Brolin being there. That is another layup that is way too funny.
He could have said Samwise Gamgee, Short Round, and 2 other hobbits,
Yeah, he could have picked anything, really. That's amazing. Okay.
All right, well, Josh,
a lot
what
of
do you
fun reviews there. So I'm going to guess that this is a I'm going to guess 3.8.
That's a good guess. Is it me next, David?
Yes.
Okay. I will. It's pretty good, Josh. I'll undercut and go with 3.6.
It's very good. It's in the National Film Registry.
Up or down? Up or down?
I'll go 4.0.
Ooh.
4.0,
That's a good guess, too.
4.0, 3.8, and 3.6. We have spaced these out by 2s or 0.2s for whatever reason. Let's see here what we got. Okay, we have this week a direct hit, and it is me. I did it.
Hey,
my 3.8 was a
you.
good guess after all.
Good
and
job.
I really needed that. So, thank you, Goonies. Thank you, Richard Donner. 3.8.
That, Josh,
I'm
that
happy
brings
with
you
that.
up
I
to
think
10
that's-
points.
Hey, double digits.
You are still in last, but it is a much needed direct hit for you.
Yeah.
Bringing you up to 10. Garrett, you have 12 and I have 13.
Excellent.
Still anybody's
Back in the
This is
game,
a-
Josh.
This
Back
is
in
a
the
real
game.
race now. This is a real race. We'll see where the rest of Action August takes us.
How do we feel this was on the action scale, real quick? Doesn't have to be a long convo, but how do we feel like this landed on the action? Because for me, definitely
Fine.
more adventure. But again, with adventure comes action. So there was some action there, but
It's certainly
definitely a good way to kick off, I think.
It's enough to qualify as action, I think.
Maybe like a 4 out of 10. There's action, but
I thought you were doing 4 out of 5. I was like,
You're
oh.
gonna,
oh no, because like it's there, but there's also there's others.
Yeah.
It's six
I thought it was
six
fun.
adventure, four action. That's
Agree
fine.
with that take.
Well, we'll have to stack them all up at the end of the month and rank them by action versus just what we thought.
For sure.
But that's it for this episode. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or in your favorite podcasting app to keep up with new episodes and reviews. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, and Facebook. Stay in touch there. Let us know what you think of the show and the movies we're watching. And then finally, you can head to SoManySequels.com for all of those links and a catalog of our past episodes. We will see you all next time. Bye.